Добрый день.
Good day, everyone. Today, we will talk about social dangers. Why does the World Health Organization consider alcohol and nicotine to be legal drugs? How does alcohol affect the birth rate, mortality, health, and family budget? How many generations will suffer from chronic bronchitis if the mother smokes cigarettes? Is it true that e-cigarettes are not dangerous? The answers to these questions and other questions are in the lecture. Let's start with the terminology. Society is a historical form of joint activity of people, characterized by certain types of relationships between people. Sociology is a science that studies the processes taking place in the society. Social threats are threats related to society, and the source of social threats can be individuals or social groups. Classification of social threats. Some social threats are associated with psychological impact, for example, fraud or extortion. Some social threats are associated with physical violence, for example, robbery, hostage-taking, terror, and rape. Social threats can be associated with the use of chemicals that destroy the human body. These include the use of drugs, smoking, and alcohol consumption. Social threats also include suicide and a number of diseases related to the level of culture and hygiene in society. For example, sexually transmitted diseases. Let's talk about drugs. Drugs are a big problem. In Russia, the number of drug-related crimes are growing every year. From 1990 to 2017, the number of registered crimes related to the manufacture, transportation, and sale of drugs increased from 16,300 to 208,700 cases. That is, the number of crimes has increased 13 times in 17 years. The World Health Organization does not usually use the word drug. The World Health Organization uses the term psychoactive substances. Psychoactive substances are chemicals that are not necessary for the normal functioning of the body, but affect the central nervous system, changing behavior, emotions, disrupting the perception of reality and the process of cognition. All psychoactive substances can cause addiction. Dependence can be physical or mental. The police have a different opinion though. From the point of view of the police, everything that is not included in the list of prohibited narcotic substances, psychotropic substances, and their precursors, that is, raw materials for production, in the Russian Federation is legal. An example is nitrous oxide. From the point of view of the World Health Organization, nitrous oxide is a drug because it affects the human psyche and causes addiction. But nitrous oxide is not included in the list of prohibited substances. Therefore, this gas can be legally purchased in the Russian Federation. This approach to the problem of drugs by the police leads to a widespread of synthetic drugs in Russia. For example, a new drug is manufactured in an illegal laboratory. This drug goes on sale on the street. But this is a new drug. It is not yet on the list of prohibited substances. Such drugs are called salts or spices on the streets. Even if the police catch the seller, it will not be considered drug trafficking. A sample of this substance will be sent to the laboratory, and in a few months, the laboratory will give a conclusion, and this substance is a drug. After some time, after the court decision, this substance will be added to the list of prohibited substances. Unfortunately, by that time, a new synthetic drug will appear on the street with a new formula, and the process repeats. On the slide, you see an advertisement for drugs on the wall. Drug traffickers in Russia widely use the internet and bank cards. As you can see, synthetic drugs are inexpensive and attractively packaged. After paying with a credit card via the internet, the drug dealer informs the place where the drugs are hidden. They can be buried in a flower bed or glued with a sticky tape to the back of a bench. Sometimes, drugs are delivered to customers by air using drones. In the picture, you can see how the city of Tokyo, Japan, a police drone with a net catches a drone of drug dealers with a package of drugs. Let's go back to the International Classification of Diseases. In the International Classification of Diseases of the 10th revision, there is a group of diseases, mental and behavioral disorders associated with the use of psychoactive substances. As you can see, alcohol, cannabis, nicotine, cocaine, and caffeine are neighbors in this group. In other words, from the point of view of the World Health Organization, alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine are the same psychoactive substances as heroin and cannabis. Why has the International Health Organization put an equal sign between these substances? The fact is that permitted or legal psychoactive substances such as caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol also cause health problems. They are also characterized by behavioral changes, intoxication, and addiction. You see two girls suffering from addiction. The only difference is in the legality of the method of using psychoactive substances, and also in the estimated lifetime. The lifespan of a person with alcohol addiction is about 10 years. Injecting drugs can kill within 1 year. Some people make the mistake of thinking that alcohol is a medicine. That's not true. In medicine, alcohol is used mainly as a disinfectant or as a preservative for some medicines. When ingested, alcohol causes a burn of the mucous membrane, which contributes to gastritis. Alcohol, as a strong disinfectant, also causes dysbiosis, killing the intestinal microflora. Absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract, alcohol passes through the liver, disrupting its normal functioning, contributing to the occurrence of diseases such as hepatitis and cirrhosis. Inside the blood vessel, alcohol damages blood cells, destroying their surface lipid layer. As a result, alcohol promotes gluing and aggregation of blood cells. This in turn leads to a blockage of the capillaries. The result of microthrombosis will be necrosis, that is, destruction or death of cells. These cells that previously received oxygen and nutrients from the capillaries that are now closed. The nervous system suffers most from alcohol. Unlike other organs and tissues, the central nervous system practically does not regenerate. Our brain consists of about 10 or 20 billion neurons, and different scientists have different opinions on this. 1 gram of ethyl alcohol kills 200 neurons. Thus, 1 bottle of light beer kills about 5,000 neurons. And sooner or later, the number of neurons will noticeably decrease so much that it will begin to disrupt the functions of the brain. Alcohol affects the central nervous system of a person, changing his behavior. Increased aggressiveness of a person who has drunk ethyl alcohol can provoke conflicts. Alcohol slows down a person's reaction to external events. This leads to the risk of an accident on road transport. Alcohol increases the level of depression and increases the number of suicides. Let's talk about some statistics. Alcohol consumption is associated with 90% of manslaughter. 88% of people who died during the fire had an elevated level of alcohol in their blood. This is due to the fact that alcohol prevented them from properly orienting themselves in this unforeseen situation. 85% of all cases of domestic violence are committed under the influence of alcohol. The statistics of accidents on the road are very indicative. Alcohol consumption is associated with 72% of road accidents on working days and 72% on holidays and weekends. At the time of committing crimes, 65% of adult criminals had alcohol in their blood. 50% of all crimes in childhood also occur under the influence of alcohol. The so-called domestic injuries, such as fractures, wounds, and dislocations, about 30% of these injuries on working days and 50% on holidays and weekends are also associated with alcohol consumption. Alcohol is like a magnet and it attracts trouble. 40% of the victims of beatings, robberies, and rapes at the time of these events were under the influence of alcohol. According to the Russian legislation, alcohol is considered a food additive, E1510, preservative, solvent. Ethyl alcohol is a toxic substance. The lethal dose of ethyl alcohol with simultaneous use is from 4 to 12 grams per kilogram of human body weight. On the slide, you see data on the number of deaths associated with alcohol consumption in the Russian Federation. This is the data from 2017. In this year, 49,133 people died from alcohol consumption in the Russian Federation. This is about 2.7% of people who died in Russia that year passed away as a result of alcohol consumption. If a person of working age dies in the country incurs losses. So because of these deaths, the country lost 35 billion rubles that year alone. Why did these people die? 15,807 people, or 32%, died from alcoholic cardiomyopathy. That is, from damage to the heart muscle by alcohol. 12,276 people, or 25%, died from alcohol poisoning. These people drank a fatal dose of alcohol. 9,656 people, or 19%, died from alcoholic liver disease. That is, from cirrhosis, hepatitis, or fibrosis. The rest of the people died from degeneration of the nervous system caused by alcohol and other problems. The previous slides showed diseases that are directly related to alcohol consumption. But alcohol can increase the number of deaths not only directly but also indirectly. Alcohol can provoke other diseases, aggravate their course, and kill people in road accidents. It is believed that 70% of the deaths of men of working age are indirectly or directly related to alcohol consumption. In the diagram, you can see the number of deaths per year and the amount of alcohol produced and sold in the same year. It is noticeable that the schedule of growth and decline in the production and sale of alcohol practically corresponds to the schedule of growth and decrease in mortality. Alcohol consumption reduces life expectancy. In this picture, you can see the life expectancy. The most interesting fact in this chart is that the average life expectancy of men, in red, in Russia is 13 years less than the life expectancy of women, in blue. This is due, among other things, to the significant use of alcohol by men in Russia. Alcohol also causes infertility. The Russian Federation has the largest number of infertile marriages in the world. In the Russian Federation, up to 30% of families cannot have children. Canada is in second place with 17%. Australia is in third place with 15%. For Europe, this figure is 10 to 15%, and for the United States of America, it's 8 to 15%. Since 1990, in Russia, the mortality rate, red line on the graph, exceeds the birth rate, blue line. The situation has started to gradually improve only in recent years. Unfortunately, the natural population growth in the Russian Federation is still low, about 0.2%. On the internet, you can find information that the use of 30 grams of ethyl alcohol by men and 20 grams of ethyl alcohol by women is permissible. This is not quite true. The risk level will be relatively low. No more than one person and 100,000 will get health problems. If a man drinks up to 70 grams of ethyl alcohol a day and a woman drinks up to 50 grams, this will be considered a dangerous use with a high level of risk. At the same time, only one person out of 1,000 will have health problems. If this dose is exceeded, from the point of view of the World Health Organization, such alcohol consumption will be considered harmful. The health risk will be extremely high. 1 person out of 10 will have health problems. Scientists have proven that the risk of diseases associated with alcohol consumption increases after drinking 20 grams. Russia is in 4th place in the ranking by the amount of alcohol consumed. In the 1st place is the Republic of Belarus. Residents of this country, on average, drink 17.5 liters of ethyl alcohol during the year. These data are calculated in terms of pure, 100% ethyl alcohol. Moldova is in 2nd place. Lithuania is in the 3rd. Residents of the Russian Federation on average drink 15.1 liters of ethanol per year. According to the World Health Organization, 8 liters per year is considered a critical amount that threatens the health of the population of this country. In addition, this rating takes into account only legally manufactured alcohol and does not take into account illegal and domestic production. According to statistics, 2.5 million people in Russia are addicted to alcohol. Of these, 1.5 million people have turned to specialists for the treatment of alcoholism. Thus, 1% of residents of the Russian Federation were treated for alcohol addiction. Alcohol dependence or alcoholism begins gradually. Stage number 0 is the formation of a risk group. All people who consume alcohol are at risk. The first stage of alcohol addiction is the loss of control over alcohol consumption. At this stage, a person may not drink alcohol for a long time, but if he started drinking alcohol, he will be able to stop only when the alcohol runs out or until he loses consciousness. The second stage is characterized by an increase in alcohol tolerance. At the same time, a person can drink a lot of ethyl alcohol. He drinks alcohol more and more often. This stage is also characterized by the appearance of withdrawal syndrome the next day after drinking alcohol. The third stage is mental, physical, and social degradation. A person is not interested in family, friends, or work. A person lives only for the sake of drinking alcohol. There is no fourth stage because after the third stage, death occurs. The entire population of the Russian Federation spends $61 billion a year on the purchase of alcohol. This amount could be enough to build 1 base on Mars and 5 bases on the Moon. Let's talk about smoking. 1 cigarette shortens the life by 15 minutes. Cigarette smoke contains many toxic substances. Therefore, the smoker's body is forced to spend the body's resources on neutralizing and removing these poisons. Due to the constant tension of detoxification systems and their subsequent depletion, the lifespan of a person is shortened. If a person smokes 1 pack of cigarettes a day, then during the year he shortens his life by 2.5 months. If he smokes for 40 years, he shortens his life by 8 years. There are many toxic substances in cigarette smoke. Carbon monoxide blocks up to 10% of hemoglobin in the blood. Therefore, the blood carries oxygen worse, causing a state of hypoxia. Nitrates contained in tobacco also block hemoglobin. Lead destroys the central and peripheral nervous systems. Cadmium disrupts the exchange of calcium in the body, causing problems with joints and the heart. Arsenic is harmful to the thyroid gland and is a carcinogenic substance. The list is very long and continues. First of all, smoking destroys the teeth. Atmospheric air in comparison with tobacco smoke has a lower temperature. Due to temperature fluctuations during smoking, the enamel of the tooth is destroyed. Getting into the lungs, tobacco smoke causes chronic bronchitis and significantly increases the risk for lung cancer. The probability of lung cancer in a smoker compared with a person who does not smoke increases by 44 times. Nicotine first dilates blood vessels and increases blood flow, but after 20 minutes, the vasodilation changes to a vascular spasm, and the person again takes cigarettes to get a new dose of nicotine, which dilates the blood vessels, and this is how dependence is formed. In addition, the constant expansion and narrowing of the blood vessels damages the walls of the blood vessels. A person who smokes cigarettes has a 12-fold increased risk of heart attack and stroke. This disease is called Obliterating Endarteritis. This disease is the result of vascular spasm and circulatory disorders in the lower extremities. This disease occurs in 29 people out of 100,000 smokers. In men, Obliterating Endarteritis is most often manifested on the toes of the foot. In women who smoke cigarettes, a violation of the trophic tissues most often appear on the hands. Some psychologists believe that smoking is a suicide option. While smoking a cigarette, the filter retains only 5% of harmful substances. If the filter retained more toxic substances, the smoker would not receive the dose of nicotine. 25% of toxic substances simply burn up during smoking. 20% of toxic substances contained in a cigarette enter the body of a smoker, and 50% of the toxins get into the environment and harm the health of those people who are near the smoker. Unfortunately, a passive smoker has the same health problems as a smoker. It is especially bad when a woman smokes. If a pregnant woman smokes, then the next 2 generations will have a high risk of lung disease. In the ranking of most smoking countries in the world, Russia takes the first place. One resident of the Russian Federation on average smokes more than 2,748 cigarettes a year. The following places in the rating are Japan, China, Indonesia, and the United States of America. Of course, the state is trying to protect non-smokers from smokers, to prevent passive smoking. Smoking is prohibited on the territory of hospitals, educational institutions, playgrounds, and beaches. Unfortunately, the fine for smoking in the wrong place is very small, from 500 to 1,500 rubles. Some people believe that light cigarettes are less dangerous for health. That's not true. Yes, these cigarettes contain less tar and nicotine, but they contain all the other toxic substances that I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture. In addition, a person who smokes cigarettes needs a certain dose of nicotine to prevent withdrawal syndrome. So, I think such a person will smoke cigarettes in greater quantities. Hookah is also harmful to the health. Yes, the smoke passes through the water and is cooled and partially cleansed of toxic substances, but this is not enough to consider it safe. Chewing tobacco. It is no less dangerous than cigarettes. It contains the same set of toxic substances. The only difference is in the absence of carbon monoxide and the method of use. Toxic substances contained in chewing tobacco or in sweets with nicotine enter the body not through the lungs but through the mucous membrane of the oral cavity, and they cause the same problems. So the main difference can be considered a different localization of cancer. Cheek cancer instead of lung cancer. Electronic cigarettes. Their danger depends on what chemicals are in the cartridge. Some sets of preservatives and flavorings may be even more dangerous than the toxins contained in tobacco leaves. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next one.